Greetings, my name's Andrew Sumner. My grandfather, Pop Smythe, bought me my first comic book in Liverpool, England, when I was 3 years old, and I spent the next 50 years hurtling around the pop culture kaleidoscope, first as a fan, and then as a journalist, editor, publisher and presenter. Along the way, I met a bunch of interesting people who will be joining me here, creators, performers, professionals and public servants. We live in divisive, fractured times, but art and popular culture connect people from all viewpoints and from all walks of life. I'm often struck by the passions people enjoy, that they can set aside their differences for and agree on whatever those passions are, whether I share them or not. And that spark, that moment of instinctive, connective agreement, that's what I call a hard agree.
I'll be barbecuing later, but right now I'm hiding.
Yeah, the problem I've got, which I suspect from your skin tone you have also, is that I personally barbecue very easily myself. So sun avoidance is the key.
That is very true.
Yeah. Have you been, mate?
Busy.
Yeah.
No change for me. All this stuff, no change.
Yeah.
I'm still self-isolated. I'm still locked down, but then I have been for 12 years. So, it's not much of a difference.
Exactly. I know exactly how you feel. I have, after a life, as you know, of traveling all over the place for 2 decades, I've barely moved out of my lounge ever since. The last time I was in the States was in February 2020. And that for me is a massive personal record to have been at home for that long. Completely unprecedented.
Weirdly, I've been to the States about 6 years, and I am going to San Diego in December for Thanksgiving.
Really, mate?
Because I thought it'd be quite interesting to see.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a very strange version of the show, of course.
It will indeed, yeah.
But also, it's over Thanksgiving, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
There we go. Also, air tickets direct from London were about 380 quid return.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing.
So I thought I'd just gamble a stamp. I'd get a bit of Airbnb action. And if it all goes tits up, then I haven't lost much.
Now you're tempting me to do something. I must admit, I've completely written that off. I know. I think I'll stick with my plan not to travel to the US this year. I think that's where I'll stay. But that is very interesting.
I'll be doing MCM here, and I'll be doing Thought Bubble as well. So I've got everything all planned out.
Oh, excellent. So when is MCM happening?
October. I haven't got the exact date. It's October.
It's all kind of, and Thought Bubble, it is October anyway, right?
November,
yeah. Okay.
First, and then like 2 weeks after that, it's off to San Diego. So
yeah. That's I'm fascinated as to what a November San Diego is going to look like, or indeed if it's really going to be possible. Because
it might not go ahead. If it does not go ahead, I'm going to be sitting in the Gaslamp district, writing Bleeding Cool, reporting on a convention that isn't happening.
Yeah, that'll be awesome, actually, mate. I mean, I love San Diego anyway as a city. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, I know you're a fellow.
I have no idea what America looks like for tourists during Thanksgiving. I haven't a concept of what that even, because any of the images of Thanksgiving you always get are like family occasions, going to say Americans all sitting around the table eating turkey. But what happens to people? I have no idea what happens if you're not part of that situation. If you just stay in the country for a few days.
Now that is something I have some insight into, because I've spent most Thanksgivings due to my work schedule in the States for the last maybe 10 years. And obviously, so I'm sitting in hotels, and it is quite a quiet and lonely experience. I was once in New York during Thanksgiving, and I went up the Empire State Building, and it was snowing. And it was completely ethereal because I was the only person up there.
Wow.
And I was looking at a very quiet New York as the snow fell down on it. And it was quite beautiful, actually, mate. It's something I'd recommend. I'm sure whatever happens, it's going to be a real adventure for you.
Sounds like just like a Thursday in New York. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I have no idea that's the other thing. I can even picture what you say, but I've got no idea what San Diego looks like.
Yeah.
During that period, I've got no reference, so I'm going to go and find out. It is weird. I was saying this to a friend of mine, how I actually know downtown San Diego better than quite a few chunks of London, or certainly most of England. Because it's one of the things I know those few blocks really well, and that's bizarre to consider.
No, it's the same for me, mate. It's like anything, and the interesting thing is you go back. And if you go back on a regular basis, because we always go back, it's exactly 12 months apart, right? You get there, it is like you've never been away. because you visit anywhere in your life that often on an annual basis, you get to know it really, really well.
But you only see it in that period.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
So when I picture it, there's huge big awnings everywhere, standing at Comic-Con things, and all the big hotels are covered with posters. I don't actually know what it looks like when there isn't a large Megatron stuck in the middle of the street. So we'll see.
I mean, the answer is I've had quite a few meetings with the San Diego guys over the years. Justin and all that crew run the show, and which have involved going in at times that are not, the height of the show. And the answer is it's beautiful, but it seems empty by comparison. It seems, which it would, of course, because I think the Comic-Con is one of two massive events they have. Mm-hmm. The other one being there's a big medical show they do there as well.
Yeah. I've no concept of that whatsoever.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Well, this is the right moment for me to say, welcome to Hard Degree. I'm Andrew Sumner, and I'm here today with my special guest, Rich Johnston, founder of Bleeding Cool.
I am.
Comic book journalist supreme.
I am not a journalist. I reject that.
What term would you use, mate?
I go with a reporter. Journalism is a profession, reporting is a trade.
Interesting. That's an interest.
I have no professional qualifications in journalism whatsoever. Therefore, I can no more call myself a journalist than a doctor who received no medical training can call himself a doctor. No, it can't be done. So,
I love it. You've jumped straight to the heart of what I wanted to ask you. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So what's always fascinated me about your trajectory and your role within the comic business is essentially, how does somebody from West Yorkshire who lives in South London end up becoming embedded in the heart of the comics industry from a professional information standpoint, from the vantage point that you had? Yeah, because it's one thing being the guy who founded Bleeding Cool, and it's another thing being the guy who ran Lying in the Gutters for so many years. But how did you manage to insert yourself into the heart of things in the way that you did from at least a 3,000-mile distance?
When it started, I started reporting on comic books online in 1992.
Yeah.
As a result, I'm the longest standing digital reporter in the world. No one has been doing it.
Not journalist, reporter.
Well, you can tie it all in if you wish. Journalism, reporting. But yeah, there's no one's been.
Just to interject, how old were you then? Back in '92.
I was 1920. 19 or 20.
Okay,
19.
Yeah.
Right. University. Went to university, and the university had this thing on the computers called the internet. Well, or rather, it was very, very basic. It was all text. It was I got access to the Usenet news group.
Usenet, yeah, okay.
And then I just realised the stuff that Des Skin was putting out in Comics International wasn't being read by Americans. Yeah. So I just started nicking stuff from Comics International and putting it up as a little kind of column. And then that's just started to grow other people towards the stuff that I was writing. And so I started finding all sorts of sources. And then Comics International started nicking stuff from me. So it's very...
So how did you... Building that arsenal of sources you've got, that's the work of 30 years though, right? So was that the way it worked? It was just incrementally you began to get...
Incremental. Absolutely incremental. And eventually, also some people who clearly hated what I was doing, eventually just kind of become part of the furniture. And it's kind of like, we might as well. Kind of thing, because all these new people are far worse than Rich, so you're better the devil you know to some degree. So it seems over these decades, it seems to have worked out. It is ridiculous, but this is the way that these things work. But it'll be my 30 years next year. That's wrong.
Yeah, I mean it's a lifetime. It's a lifetime of comic book reporting.
Yeah, well, there were people writing for Bleeding Cool who weren't born.
Yeah,
when I started writing this stuff. It's I'll get people say, I remember you back in the day when you used to do stuff for comic book resources. And I'm thinking, well, that was just, it's halfway. Yeah. So it's a bizarre, and I have no explanation. This is a job that I do that didn't exist when I was a kid, wondering what I'd do when I grew up. It's clearly not anything that you should be able to make a living at, but I am, and I have. Yeah. Certainly should be able to bring up a family in southwest London, and it keeps going. And I've now got to the stage where, like I said, become part of the furniture. I'm now consulting for people, so I'll get little freelance gigs consulting for one or two people here and there, which is very handy. But it's as peculiar to me as it is to you. Put it that way.
Yeah. But I think it's beautifully peculiar, and I love stories of people who essentially are self-actualizing and have created their own career, which is what you've done, of course.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, and to a degree, you're part of the establishment. You're not inside the establishment running it, but you're right inside of it. Yeah.
Oh, utterly and completely. Yeah, I'm a factor that has to be taken into account. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. As I said, it is part of the furniture, but I mean, it's only happened because of the economic crash 12 years ago, or 13 years ago, when because I used to be working in advertising. That was my thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Lining the gutters on the side. I was an advertising copywriter, quite a good one. Won awards, all this kind of nice stuff. And then all the advertising agencies in London fired all their writers pretty much overnight, and hardly anyone was hiring. So I was like getting by with a little bit of freelance here and there. And it was William Christensen at Avatar Press who said, that thing you do for Jonah at CBR every week, how about you do it for me every day and I'll pay your mortgage?
Yeah.
And just had second child at the time. Really, really important thing for someone to say. So I started doing that. So we launched Bleeding Cool part-time. I think I was doing 4 posts a day then, and that was it. And then time went on, and kind of I was doing as a part-time creative director at another agency, and as part-time Bleeding Cool. It was a strange mix-up, and they both kind of said, you're going to have to choose. We can't have you part-time. You got to go full-time. And I just thought, I'll do the Bleeding Cool because it was paid slightly less, but it was my heart. It was more.
And it was your own construct. It was something that you'd brought. You'd birthed.
I mean, I own none of it, but I know my name is intrinsically tied into it, which is why I always get people saying, how dare Rich Johnston write this thing about wrestling? I've never seen a wrestling match. I don't know. It's nothing to do with me. It's to do with other people. There's loads of people. I'm just one of many. I'm a head writer of Bleeding Cool. There are other head writers, there are other editors, and there's editor-in-chief and publishers and general managers and all these things. But I am aware that to some degree people kind of conflate me and Bleeding Cool, which, is not the worst thing in the world.
Mate, when you're the founder, when you're Louis B. May, for example, and your era passes, your name's still on the door and you're still the person associated with it. And you're right, I would say that every other, and there are some fine writers working for Bleeding Cool, but I would say that they're all more or less invisible, no matter how good they are, because
Jude Terror. If you tell Jude Terror he's invisible, I think he will track you down and hunt you like the dog you are.
The mysterious Jude Terror. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I need to pay him the respect that he is due. Let's go back in time for a second. And how did you transition?
Also, although there are quite a few others, I want to also jump on Hannibal Taboo, the senior reviewer of Bleeding Cool. Again, I don't want to get any. There's many as well, but he's also someone who I think he's got a long-standing history in doing this kind of stuff. So he's for CBR. And of course,
when I'm speaking, it's just my opinion. I mean, my personal view is that Bleeding Cool is you, and everybody else is ephemeral.
Okay.
No matter how, and I can tell there's some good writers working for them.
I don't, because Hayden Booth,
of course, that's not your view,
and Gavin, and all these people. I mean, I see it all the time. So it's. I can't ever see that. I see a very different picture from myself.
And that's very good. And I love the fact that you're essentially taking an anti-Stan Lee stance here. So, we don't want to recreate that. Yeah, no. So what I mean by that is...
I see.
Yeah, in his immortal interview in the late 60s, where he's asked about the inner workings of Marvel, the writer credited him with almost sole responsibility for everything, and Stan happily went along with that, leading to one of his major fallouts with Jack. Right,
I'm aware.
I've done the same, taken the same perhaps naive journalistic stance, and you have debunked it, which is very good. That's your job. That's what you should be doing. I like that. I would do the same thing myself if the shoe was on the other foot. I'm merely talking about my own personal interaction with Bleeding Cool, which I always read. But essentially, also the things that you cover are the things that are of much more interest to me than some of the more general stories. And
I get that. Well, the things that I cover are also the things that are more general interest to me. So we have a similar bent there.
Oh, of course, it goes without saying.
Love what I'm working on right now. This is going up later today, so I'm not sure when this goes up, but it's been in the past. But I've got you remember when before Dan DENIO was fired?
Yeah,
it was all going to be the big DC timeline.
Absolutely right. I do recall that.
I have every single item on it. I'm about to run the full planned DC timeline before Dan DENIO was gone. It was binned with no redactions, everything in there. So you can see everything that they had planned out for what DC was meant to look like in the past.
Well, I will look forward to reading that. I will very much.
It's taken me a good long while to transcribe it all and zoom in on some of the details, but we've now got everything. We've also got the ages of all the characters, what they were meant to be. So basically, the plan was that by now, all like Batman, Superman, etc., they're all meant to be in their late 50s, early 60s. And that was the plan now. So it's quite fun to look this through and go, oh, okay, interesting. Okay, let's go with this. So this is
what I love about this is by the time people hear this episode and hear our conversation, this reveal will, of course, be in the past. And just hearing your excitement in real time about actually opening that story up. See, this is why I think that, and this is why before we get back into the time warp stuff that I want to talk about, this is what I think still very much works about Bleeding Cool and about what you write is you're clearly still excited by all of this.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you become jaded, if you become not interested in your subject matter, it can kill what you write about. Yeah, I
would not be doing it. And I know other people in my kind of similar position to mine, they have definitely got jaded and they've gone for other things. Sometimes they come back, which is also good to see. But yeah, there's quite a few people just kind of like, well, why are you doing this then?
Yeah.
So, well, it pays the bills. No, that's not. Lots of things could pay the bills. Like I said, I mean, I had choices, and this is the choice I made and it's not one I've regretted. It's one I'm absolutely happy I did. Because how about yourself? Are you jaded? Do you still love it?
No, not at all. I still love it. I mean, that's an excellent question, and I would answer it in a couple of ways. As you know, for many years I was a music and movie journalist, and I was a music movie men's publisher, which is how we first met. That's what I was doing when you and I first met in the very early 2000s, and I did that for a long, long time. And I did get to the point when it comes to writing about movies, which I absolutely love, that one of the problems with being a movie journalist is when you're a movie fan, you self-select. So you go and see a film on the basis of whether you think you'll be interested in it or not. And then your hit rate once you've gone to see the movie is, was it good, bad, or indifferent, right? And so therefore your hit rate on films that you like might be 50%, and 50% of the time you're disappointed. When you go to see films on assignment, you're not self-selecting. So then suddenly the amount of films you see that you consider to be good are 10% of what you see. Now, seeing 90% dross can be difficult over time, so what happened to me was over 10, 15 years, I began to get very tired of writing about films that I didn't like. And by the time you and I first met, which is in the early 2000s, I was like a full-time publisher who didn't write at that point, and that was after 15, 20 years of writing. Yeah. And then what happened is when I transitioned when I left IPC, and you may or may not recall this, mate, but I actually left IPC and I went to run Cahiers du Cinema in Paris. Like most dream jobs, turned out not to be a dream job because, funnily enough, if you're like an English managing director and you're running a team of 40 French journalists, they're not necessarily that welcoming, if that makes sense. And
I'm aware.
Yeah, there we go. So I'm pretty bulletproof, but even with my high levels of good humor, it was like, okay, this is not quite working out the way I expected it to.
Basically, you were doing your own little version of Emily in Paris, weren't you?
Correct, absolutely right. Titan, where I now work, I'd been a licensor for Titan when I was at IPC. And so I knew the owners of Titan. They were very well-known figures in the industry. I'd carried on talking to them. And in having one of my regular meetings with them, just going out for dinner or whatnot, and talking about my relative levels of personal dissatisfaction with where I was in Paris, the Titan opportunity came up, where I've been ever since on the board of Titan Entertainment. Yeah. And as you know from when I was in the mainstream magazine business, as much as I'm a movie fan and a music fan, probably my primary, and a jazz and rock and roll fan, my primary interest was always comic books. So it was the perfect get out of jail, get out of Paris card. Since I've been at Titan, it's allowed myself to insert myself full-time into the comics industry, which I absolutely love. And I'm not jaded at all. I'm not really jaded by anything that we do at Titan because it all dials hot wires into my interest. And the interesting thing is once you work in the licensing side of the movie business, I'm no longer a movie journalist, but I meet a lot of the same people just in the course of doing my job. But you have self-selected because you're working on the projects you want to work on. you sit around and go, right, what are we going to do? What books are we going to produce? Are we going to work on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Yes, we shall. That's just a great ride. So yeah, I'm super enthusiastic about it. And as you can see, if you ever dial into one of the things I do during my day job, which is present Forbidden Planet TV, that's genuine enthusiasm. That's not me faking it. I really am completely without cynicism when it comes to the whole comic book pop culture industry business and the art of it all. I love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah, no, I'm probably happier than I've ever been, to be honest, mate.
So you've now become the face of Titan and Forbidden Planet for many people.
Yeah, and it's kind of a role that I've been given and that I'm happy to do. I mean, I think its genesis is the fact that, as you know, I presented a bit of television back in the day, and when we were trying to find an expression for Forbidden Planet because of the pandemic, we couldn't do any of our. We have an extensive signings program and lots and lots of physical appearances. So the great John Harrison for years has been coordinating all of these physical experiences at Forbidden Planet. We couldn't do any of those, therefore we launched the YouTube channel, and then once we launched the YouTube channel, we needed to cast around the business of people who'd worked in TV before. Well, there was a list of one, and it was me, so I've just ended up doing it. But it's a process that I very much enjoy. And as you know, for years I've done the kind of similar thing happened with, say, our presentations at I run all the panels at San Diego and New York Comic Con, which and I do for a long time. I started out kind of helping out with all the retailer presentations, and over time
that was always the big one. That was when I first noticed it. There we are. Titan just leveled up without doing. That's good.
That's right. Yeah. And it was quite good because I was always good mates, as you may recall, with very close, in fact, with Bob Wayne. And round about the time that Bob Wayne, who's always the man at those events, stopped doing it, is when I started doing it. So
he also had a very different energy to yours.
Yes, yeah.
His energy was Eeyore. You are Tigger.
Correct. Absolutely right.
Definitely right.
And the reality is, mate, you've been in the room when I do those things. I'm genuinely enthusiastic. It's not fake. It's not like I put that mask on and I walk off and I'll become some glowering, miserable bastard. I'm not a glowering, miserable bastard. It's not in me.
Also, it's really good to go on after David Gabriel.
Yeah. I always enjoy going on after David Cable. Well, they've got to the point now at San Diego, they deliberately schedule us /me and Ricky, whoever. They find out where the dead spot is, and that's where they put us. They literally do that.
Yes.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. Well, your feedback's very kind, mate, and I appreciate it. But that was a very long, rambling answer to the question.
Well, you're welcome to Bleeding Cool TV. We're here talking to Andrew Sumner. He's given us a wonderful look at his career. And so yes.
There we go, mate. There we go. So to roll back in time,
yes.
How did Lying in the Gutters first get involved with comic book resources and with Jonah?
I was doing things again. Lying in the Gutters was about halfway through. I had already been doing columns for a variety of publications. I'd done some for Silver Bullet Comic Books, which is now Comic Bulletin, which is called All the Rage. I did a very short stint called the Gutter Press for.
I remember this
for Next Planet Over.
I used to love that.
It was David Bogart who hired me to do that, and Eric Stevenson was my editor. And that, so it's weird when I think about this. And that was the one that I think it was Kurt Busiek and Mark Waid got me kicked out of. And then I've done a few of these. I've done it online previously as like my own website and as the Rec Arts Comics Misc column on the Usenet before there were websites, all this kind of thing. And it was just Jonah Wyland who said, why don't you come and do that thing for CBR and we'll pay you money. And that was a very nice idea. So I thought, that's something good. I like the idea of money. So it wasn't a lot, but it did it, and it became their biggest column on CBR, which was great.
Did. Yeah,
which was great, and for a good long chunk. And so I kind of kept doing that, but that was a weekend thing. It was like a one column that would run on Mondays. I'd write it over the weekend, and it was something.
Did you have people feeding you tips and stories during the week, and then you collated them at the weekend?
I would research them. Yes, I'd find stories, I'd see stories, I'd research them through the week. I'd write it. I'll put it on Saturday or Sunday, and it would then go up as a huge, big, long, one big article that did very well. And that was how it was for about 9 years. So it ran for a good long chunk of time. And as I said, until my own personal circumstances meant that taking it full time with another website was the way to go.
Yeah. So that was I always wondered what the transition point was, but it was essentially not being able to continue with your copywriting career was absolutely the moment that led to.
And William Christensen offering me another solution. So, and that has done us proud. Now Avatar's main business is Bleeding Cool. So it's
is that right? Is that? Oh, that's great. That's so good. Yeah, that's I love that.
It's grown and grown, and so it's great.
That was 12 years ago, mate. Right?
That was 12 years. Yeah, 12 years ago. Yes.
Amazing. So when you look back on this 12-year run that you've had with Bleeding Cool, what are the moments you're personally the proudest of?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, getting stories.
Yeah, of course, but there's got to be. I know because I've done this. There's got to be a bunch that jump out at you and you go, "Man, that was good."
There's a few. It's the ones I like the best. The ones where we run a story and everyone says we're lying.
Yeah.
And everyone says they're just making it up. They're just making it nonsense. It's absolutely not true. And then 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, sometimes 2 years later, when it all kind of comes out, they go, oh, well, yeah, maybe that one. But the next one is definitely not true. So those are quite good ones. So things like, lots of good ones at DC, the New 52 reboots, Before Watchmen, all that kind of stuff. And all the details, all the very tiny little details and stuff. Those are always great to do. I'm trying to think now. Oh, and I think about, it's a whole bunch of different kind of stories. We generally seem to be the ones who jumped in there first. One of my favourites would have been when I managed to sneak an advanced copy of the first appearance of the New Look Thor from Young Avengers the night before it's meant to be published. The day before it's meant to be published. How I got it, that's beside the point. And I went to the Thor 2 premiere and I jumped over the barrier, dodged a couple of Disney security guards to run up to Tom Hiddleston to get a photo of him with a new copy of tomorrow's New Look Loki from the Avengers, and that went online, and that took down Tumblr. I remember that. It was just that was millions of people coming. It's like, the New Look Loki. So that was a good one, and I don't think I'd be able to get away with that now. Also, I don't think I'm quite limber enough.
Not spry enough to do it.
No, not quite as much. But things like that, those are good ones. But that kind of thing does kind of stick out. But apart from that, it's generally just getting the scoop, getting the story in there first, and then just waiting for everybody else to catch up. I mean, some of the ones are things that people didn't even notice. Like we ran things like Amazon buying Comixology about 2 months before that was announced and stuff, and everyone just kind of ignored it. Oh, that's just nonsense. And then 2 months later, they go, hang on. Didn't that guy? So things like that.
Well, one of the things that fascinates me is that some of the deep dives into the business mechanics of comics, because of the nature of it, a lot of people find that quite dry. And I notice some of that doesn't really pop, like some of the more gossipy stuff that you do.
That's true. Sometimes it's the same, though. Sometimes it's the same. I mean, all the Ike Perlmutter stuff that we did.
Yeah. Oh, that was great, mate. That was great.
And that was absolutely. I mean, we got the first people who get. Also, things like is his letter saying how all the superhero films superhero films starring women were always unsuccessful. We got that one out there first. All this kind of stuff. So we were.
I remember that, mate.
But also, the more fascinating thing is how we then discovered that, especially Marvel Studios, was using Ike Perlmutter as a kind of a sin eater. So if the studios has to make a decision which is going to be unpopular with the talent, they'll just blame it on Ike.
Yeah.
And they say, oh no, and they repeat it. So I don't know if you remember the thing about how they were saying Iron Man 3 didn't have a female villain because it wasn't selling enough toys. Yeah, and that was all like Perlmutter. I had nothing to do with that. It was clearly it was the decision by the people making the film, and they needed to have an excuse to give to the talent or the actors and things like that. And so they came up with that one. So you get those along the lines as well, that sometimes you do find these kind of like cartoony villains you can write about and do all the stuff they've done. And we certainly have done that. But also, it's never always quite that simple. There's always something mitigating here and there, which goes the other way. And I think that's part of what the job is not falling for the narrative.
Yeah,
I guess there's off narratives, but you always have to keep examining it and looking for the contraindications as well, and reporting those as well. So,
well said, mate. Because the truth is, real life has far more nuance than a very simple black versus white story. And the thing about fandom as an entity in itself wants a simple good versus bad narrative and is always looking for that, but it's never that easy. And if you work in any kind of business, and you have worked inside creative businesses for a long time, I've spent my entire career doing it, things are never simple. And often the reasons for stuff happening which doesn't make any sense or are a bad idea, they're often far more mundane than people suspect. and often, bad decisions get made, not just because you have strong personalities going, I am or I'm not doing that, but they happen for a whole universe of reasons that are in fact very boring.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very true. Yes. So, but it's quite, but that's the kind of stuff that I like to get down and dirty with, get really involved with and see all the different aspects. That is definitely the stuff that I feel I'm at my best when I can get into things like that. That means things like the Dreamwave days when they weren't paying anybody and we were finding all the stuff that company was doing and all the very dodgy stuff they were up to. Those are the kind of things where you can just dive in and there's like hundreds of stories if you keep looking, because nobody has actually looked at that point, and there's just loads of stuff. So that's always a good one. When you can almost like, it's like when you're mining and you get a new stream of gold that no one else has found, and there's so much in there, you just have to keep digging and digging, and you keep finding more. And then of course that brings all the other people who also want to come along and find it as well. But you're ahead there and you're trying to find the next big stream of whatever you're looking for. So that's and that at that moment, that's probably the best it feels, when you're actually getting all these hunks of new information that no one else has seen, and everybody's going to be fascinated by. And all the other prospectors are like in about like two valleys east, and they haven't quite got to yours yet. So it's that's when it feels the best. That's when you really feel like you're flying.
Mate, I can see that. And again, your enthusiasm is unmistakable when you talk about it. One of the things that you've done over the years, I love the regular ongoing stories that you come back to. Now, I forget the chap's name, but you'll know it. There's an artist who's notorious for duping and fleecing people online. And you've come back and covered this guy.
Which
many
because
times.
I'm sorry, there's quite a few.
There's a particular one who has a variety of aliases.
Oh, we're talking about Josh Hoops.
Correct, Josh Hoops. Yes, exactly.
I haven't gone back to Josh for a while, but yes, because he kept doing the same con job time after time after time. Yeah. And as far as I can tell now, he has finally stopped. He's not doing it anymore, and I haven't heard any more. And every now and then I put little searches out to see if there's any vestigial traces, but no, he seems to have stopped. But yeah, that was a definite, let's keep returning to that guy, because again, you keep finding out new bits of information and new things would come to light and you go, well, that's ridiculous. And it was the day when the two of them combined, because we also did a thing on an artist called Rob Brunito, who basically made his career out of copying other people's artwork and selling it at conventions. That was his thing. And we kind of like tackled him. We'd done all this stuff. We pointed out everything he was stealing from. We got people going up to conventions and saying, this is my work, how dare you? I read about it on Bleeding Cool, all this kind of thing. And then there was the day when I was talking to his wife online, and she was berating me for all the terrible things I've been saying about her husband, which was, I had. And they said, anyway, we're gonna show you all, show Bleeding Cool, everybody else all, because we're gonna go. We've got a new publishing input that we're going to launch our own comic books. We're going to publish all original work, and we're working with other writing artists, and we're going to put them all out, and it's going to be wonderful. And well, who's this? His name's Josh, and we've got a whole line lined up of 5 books. And I literally had to pause, and I just went, "Is it Josh Hoops?" And she went, "Yes. How did you know?" And I was like, "Just run." It was all to some degree. I felt really sorry for Rob because they were totally different worlds apart. Rob was just basically kind of nicking people's stuff and selling them his own, which is a certain level. Josh Hoops was engaged in absolute levels of fraud. He was representing himself as other artists getting work as if he was Art Adams, and then just taking the money and running all this kind of stuff. And it was just at that moment I felt really sorry for Rob, because he was about to be taken to the cleaners by someone who just seen a grift. And I tried to warn her, and I tried to say but she wouldn't listen to me. She said, no, he's a genuine thing. He's absolutely wonderful. I sent her a few links. I don't know what ever happened. The line was never published, of course. Of course. But it was the moment where they kind of like just combined, and I just had to write the article. Rob Granito is teaming up with Josh Hoops. And it just felt like, that felt like when you write the Avengers, that's like the crossover you can't quite get in your head. When two totally different stories and worlds become the same thing.
It's JLA versus the Avengers, isn't it?
That's kind of what it was. Yeah. It's like, but nobody wins.
The JLA versus the Avengers of extreme fraud. I mean, a story like that, when you're in the middle of it, you must have been, my God, how blessed am I to be getting this in real time?
The legal aspects. I mean, everything of that has to be go through by the lawyers. Have you checked these? Have you checked these sources? And the Josh Hoops stuff, they always come back and saying, but is this true? And I go, yes, here's all the evidence. Okay, that's fine. How about this? Yes, that's as well. That's fine. So you have to go through all that. Those are the big stories. They take time, but man, they're satisfying when they come through.
Right. Oh.
And I think that, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff like that. I mean, the one where I must have had my heart in my mouth most, I think, was when we first started reporting about the actions of DC editor Eddie Berganza, because that's that time when no one that senior had been exposed for those kind of actions. And it helped. That was one very specific thing that happened at WonderCon hotel lobby, which was witnessed by about 18 people, all of whom emailed me in the morning, so I woke up to it. So that was really useful to have a lot of people.
So you had multiple mass verification.
Yes. And once you get that chink in, then you can start to open up, and then other stuff came up, and then BuzzFeed did an amazing article as well, and then a lot more people like dive in. But that was a kind of turning point, I think, for the industry, because that made a lot of previous stories that had been taken as seriously. They were seen in new lights. I mean, that was like before the Me Too movement and things, but that's comics had its own kind of like beginnings of examining the actions of some of the people who worked in it, and that then spelled out into all sorts of people. But that was I look back and think, there's not many things I can say, I helped people, but that thing there, that little moment there, taking that jump and saying, no, let's just do it, let's just name him, got all this corroboration, we just have to, we're gonna have to do this, was that decision there. I feel, well, that might have helped, and that might have helped more people in the long run. So
I'm sure
it helped other people as well on the line. So if I look back, I'll go with that little moment as a place that maybe I helped some people. So that was a good place to be.
I think it's all very important. I think the work you did there was very important. I
would say other people did a lot more.
Yeah, but you were part of a machine that was delivering an important outcome, because I guess that stuff kind of ran in parallel with the stuff about Brownstein at CBLDF, right?
Now that came a lot later.
Was it later?
But first of all, that the stuff with Brownstein was in the 90s, early 90s, and I think it was late 90s, or either way, it was.
But he survived for a long time, didn't he?
Well, I recall. That did come out, but it wasn't okay. It wasn't considered as serious. It was a thing, and back in it's one of these things you say, it was a different time. It was definitely considered serious by a number of people at the time, and a lot of people just like would not work with Brownstein or CBLDF as a result. But certainly me and a lot of other people, we didn't take it as serious as we should have done. And there were also the idea of like false equivalency. Well, he said, she said, kind of aspects that were. At the time, everybody did. You look back now and you think, actually, that was the wrong decision. There's wrong decisions to make, because we were learning. We didn't know, and it's not just there's a bunch of us. We didn't actually get the scope, the seriousness. So we actually had to educate ourselves. And there's something that's definitely not a finest hour. Things basically got a bit better later, and we learned. I mean, there are other examples as well. The stories that if I go back now with hindsight, I would have covered it or covered better. But at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. And again, like I say, it's a reporter, not a journalist. It's you learn on the job. These days, I think our responses are a lot stronger, a lot more robust. But they also have to go through a lot more legalese. We have to check things. We've got procedures. Caitlin Booth, editor-in-chief of Bleeding Cool, has set up basically a series of procedures for these kind of stories. It always has to be done with the victim's permission. And so we can never run a story if the person involved doesn't want it to run or doesn't want us to run it, things like that. So there's which I think I previously years and years ago I'd have thought, well, it's news, it's out there, it runs.
Sure,
I would. So again, things have changed. So we have got these kind of procedures now, which wasn't even on the table before now. So you can look back and think how you would have done things differently, but the best thing you can do them, I guess, is to do them differently now.
Yeah. Well said. I think that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I feel the resonance of the importance of those stories to you, and I think you definitely contributed to an extremely positive turn of events within the comic book industry. And the comic book industry was certainly, to a degree, on the cutting edge of some of those movements that have benefited everybody, I think, and are important to recognise and embrace. Outside of that, and outside of the stories you've just taken me through, to step away from the effect of your work and to get into your personal fandom, what are the books, what are the titles, what are the things that, as a comics fan, that you've responded to the most positively yourself over the years? What are your favorite things in the art of it all to come out of the industry?
There's a few that I still actually do. Ones that haven't actually been widely recognized. especially. Those are the ones that I will always... The work of the late Terry Wiley with Jenny McKinnon and the Sleaze Castle books, especially are, I consider almost like the Lost Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy of Britain. They're one of the finest sci-fi comedies with incredible skill learnt from the masters. And the Sleaze Castle books are some of the best, I think, are the best comic books, some of the best comic books Britain has ever produced. Away from that, things like Long Shot Comics by Shane Simmons, which is did you know that one?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
The tiny little dots, all it is characters that are dots. It's almost the repudiation of the idea that in comic books, who's more important, the writer or the artist? And people say, well, I always have that argument. And they say, well, you couldn't have the comic book without an artist. Well, Long Shot Comics is the comic book without an artist. Except, of course, it is an artist just doing it as tiny little dots. Yeah. And the idea of having a huge multi-generational, multi-centennial saga, those huge big like 19th century novels, but funny and set across this panoply of history. That is sensational, and I will push that. It's also really easy. It's a really easy book to read, and you can push on people, and they just start laughing almost straight away before they start getting into the whole history of it. So those are two. Others that stick out. Oh, I mean, the work of Posey Simmons. The graphic novels of Posey Simmons are sensational. And again, I think
I completely agree. I completely agree with that.
They tap into something like British middle classness, especially, which I think is just perfectly both represented, celebrated, and parodied on the page. And they're just I can dive into those and be very, very happy for a very long time. Work of Dave Sim, who is very much doing has been basically kind of pushed out. He's definitely been cancelled these days for all sorts of good reasons. But his work stands out as being absolutely sensational as a crafts person, and also utterly batshit crazy the longer it goes into the most strange, weirdest, twisted conspiracy. But he's got that kind of Ditko kind of aspect to him, and I think
well, just to interject and agree, I think the interesting thing about Sim is he's such an amazing artist, such an amazing craftsman, but over a period of time, while his creative powers are maintained, you kind of watch the unraveling of his brain as you read his work.
Yeah, but again, it's actually quite entertaining. But it is, and he gets better as he gets.
It's crazy.
I would say, I would say so.
I agree completely.
I mean, some of my favourite stuff was his, which was later in the period. It's one of the books called Guys, which is all just set in a pub, and it's all kind of characters from self-publishing at the time who all turn up as kind of like guest characters in that. And I'm totally down for that. That was a grand place to be. So definitely books like that. What else has been sticking out for me? Okay, here's something. Again, celebrating the people who aren't quite celebrated. I'm looking at people like the writer Alex de Campi. I think she's basically our next A-level comic book writer on a level of Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, and very few other people. And I don't think enough people have actually tagged into what she's doing. She's incredibly clever at writing a wide variety of stuff to the highest possible level and innovating, never being satisfied with the medium as it is, trying something new. And that is really exciting and fun to see. So I'm always looking forward to a new Alex de Campi project, whatever it may be. She does.
Have you read Maddie?
People. Yes.
It's great stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's really good.
Well, here's the other thing. She rubs people up the wrong way. Definitely does. Definitely the big publishers, they've always had massive problems with her. But that's been true of, all sorts of creators. Right. Would be a great one to throw up. And it generally comes down to her having exacting high standards and not wishing to. I remember that she basically the reason she doesn't get any work at Marvel is because she turned down a book that she was going to be writing because she didn't like the artist and said, I can't work this hard, we have to have a better artist. And she was right. In the end, it was written by somebody else, and they ended up having another artist anyway. But that's the moment I look back at that's why you didn't get any more work from Marvel, because you turned them down, kind of thing. So, and also, she's quite happy to just speak her mind without dulling it down. But her work, I mean, she basically created the motion comic that kind of the motion digital comic with Valentine for Comixology. She basically made Comixology come up with a new way of having a comic book on the page. Things like that. Time and time again, she innovates and she celebrates. She brings in new other creators to work with her. You're right. She's worked with Duncan Jones, Maddie and stuff, but also things like Jack the Motherfucker, which which had an artist who had been at that time was best known for all ages work. And they just did the most amazing piece of work together. I mean, that was an amazing graphic novel from from Image and was became one of their better sellers of the year. I bet that went into a lot of people. I'm always going to be interested to see what she comes up with next, because she's always doing something interesting. I mean, she has all these other strings of bows. She's a director. She directed videos for Amanda Palmer. She did the Leeds United video, which is one of my favourites, the Papini sisters.
Oh yeah, man! Those Papini sisters videos are great. They're really good.
But this is what I mean. I don't think she. It's one of these people I think we're lucky to. She really likes comics, and she really wants to do comics. She's doing other stuff. She's writing TV, she's writing films and things, all these kind of things. But she really likes comics and wants to keep doing them. And those are the kind of people I think we need to celebrate and recognise. It's the absolute geniuses who could be doing other things, but nevertheless have decided to stick with comics because they can't leave. So those are definitely the people I like to jump on. Who else am I looking at? There's one person I'm really interested in, because she's had a hell of a history in the industry and in life generally. T. Franklin, who she wrote the Bingo Love book from Image Comics, and she has a fractious relationship with all sorts of people over the years as well. She's writing the new Harley Quinn Poison Ivy comic for DC. It's a spin-off of the animated the animated series, and she's absolutely the perfect person, because she is. You have no idea what the hell she's going to say or do. At any point, she can spin off into a huge, furious screed, but one thing or another. It's absolutely amazing and fun, so fun to read, and sometimes get educated. What she's going to do with something like Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, I have no idea. I can't wait to see. And that's going to be published in a few months. Some people have said that they've seen some of the pages coming through, and it's just like, well, you know the Harley Quinn TV series, the animated.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I love it.
It was quite a surprise in its tone when that came out.
Oh, absolutely, I get that. Yeah, they were very bold in grasping that in such a full-blooded way.
Absolutely. Well, apparently T. Franklin is going to be taking that and just taking it another stage forward.
Dialing it up to 11. That's what I like to hear. That'd be amazing.
I'm surprised that Warner's going to publish this, put it that way. So, but then I was surprised that Warner's put out the Harley Quinn animated series itself. So we shall see.
That animated show is a source of great entertainment for myself and my daughter, and that's our like one of our dad-daughter projects is that show. So
it also demonstrated a massive big divide within DC Comics at the time, because you had a group of people who were basically wanting characters to go back to the way they were originally presented. So you'd have like Poison Ivy as the villain and Harley Quinn as Joker's girlfriend, all that kind of stuff. All trying to move more into that as the action adventure. Well, you had another set who were going, no, this is clearly not the way to go. Harley and Poison Ivy are a couple. They're having these wacky adventures. These are much more the way we should be going. And they tugged, and you had all these various different projects which were going one way or the other. And you could see the thumbprints of editorial in various different competing press releases, and we naturally collated them all, pointed out all the differences, and then it seemed that just Warner's fired half of them, and so then that the problem was no longer an issue.
There's no more tension because no more staff.
Because it's a bit like all the people who were on one side suddenly found they didn't have a job anymore, and so it's like, oh, we've won by. So the other side were like, we've kind of won by default. Don't say too much, just keep going, otherwise they'll fire us as well. But it was a very strange situation to see, because we've seen that's been I think the biggest change, certainly in direct market comic books, has been the change at DC Comics more than anything else in the way they do business.
Absolutely. It's huge, mate. It's huge.
And we haven't seen the impact so far as much. I mean, you've got people like Marie Javins, who's basically doing the work of 10 Men from Hawaii. And sorry, she's in Hawaii. Not 10 Men from Hawaii. But anyway, you're seeing a lot of places being spent, and some great stuff being put out by these folk. It's almost like a lot of the stuff that's happening seems to be done almost like by default by accident. This is where we are. So some people who are do some grand work for DC, it's kind of like, that's not what you should have been doing this time. It's just you happen to be there. I always remember when I think it was Bob Harris was talking about when X-Men and had Fabian doing stuff, and Chris Claremont had left, and they needed somebody else to fill in to do the next few issues, and they just didn't know of anybody. And then Scott Lobdell walks past the door. And Fabian kind of went, well, really? He'll do. And then so you have that kind of career. Well, I think there's certain people at DC who have basically, I say, someone like Ram V, fantastic writer, does some great graphic novel work and stuff. He's at DC, it seems to have been, he picked up because he did some interesting stuff, and then everything just fell apart. But he was there. Oh, we'll give it to him. Oh, we'll give it to him. And suddenly he's got 3 books. He's got 3 monthly books at DC, and you kind of think that's fantastic, because he's a great writer. It's wonderful to see him he's taking advantage of the opportunities that have been presented to him. Yeah. But man, the circumstances that led to those opportunities are insane, and I look forward to seeing oral history.
I think you've touched upon a very rich theme, which again, I think a lot of people out there in fandom don't really understand is that the level that corporate chaos, the huge effect and shadow it casts over creativity, and the fact that a lot of things that turn out to be creatively brilliant happen for a million other reasons and somebody had a grand design. They happen through these accidents.
You look back, you look at things like the Diskin's Warrior magazine. Alan Moore never planned to be writing 3 strips for that book. He was the third choice to write Marvel Man in the first place. So the fact that he was then doing V for Vendetta and Bo Jeffries Saga and then writing lots of other stuff, he was there. Yeah. He was great. B, he was there, and so his work just kind of kept growing. There's this whole it's the Hamilton song, you've got to be in the room where it happens. Right. And if you are, absolutely, all these things are possibly there. But getting into that room in the first place is not always easy.
No, it's so true. I spoke to Fabian a couple of weeks ago, actually, and one of the interesting things he had to say was because in his editorial role, he was mainly looking after licensed titles, which haven't lived on in the popular imagination. But most of his working day when he was on staff at Marvel, once he moved out of promotions and advertising, was spent marshalling licensed work, which very few people remember. A lot of what he did with his writing career was really affected by his workload from the licensed book. That's how you get the whole Scott Lobdell incident. It's just about bandwidth. And it's like, I can't physically do what you're asking me to do. That guy, he can do it. And that happens so often, and it's invisible outside, I think.
Also, I mean, it can be a dangerous thing. It's not entirely a great thing, because basically this is how you get a whole bunch of white middle-class male writers writing comics from most of this history, because they happen to be there.
Yeah,
and you happen to be in the room. Your friends, you're part of the same social structure, social strata. I know someone who knows someone. What we're now seeing is, and I think partially the internet, partially social mores, is basically that just opening up.
Yeah.
And you're seeing things like the success in other areas being. I mean, I'm looking at the success in graphic novels in America right now. I was just doing a piece right now because some people are going, "Oh, it's all about manga. It's all imported mangas coming in, and it's outdoing all the Marvel and DC stuff, and it's destroying local talent." And I just had to point out that this year, the best-selling manga in the US, which was the latest volume of My Hero Academia, was outsold 10 times by Dav Pilker's new Dogman volume, because Academia, that sold a whopping 86,000 volumes of its latest volume, whereas Dogman sold 860,000. Wow. And you look at those figures, you think, no, something else is going on. And that is where Marvel and DC want to be more than anywhere else. They want to be in the bookstores, but they want to be in the bookstores through the younger readers. And you're going to see a lot more of that change. And seeing that DC have definitely pivoted to do it themselves. Marvel are going up with Scholastic to do it as a kind of a licensed thing. All those IDW Marvel books that have been publishing to not great numbers, but that's building up a massive backstock of kids' Marvel books, which are going to hit those bookstores at some point. It's going to be huge. And here's the thing: I also see this as the equivalent of the new newsstand. Bookstores, especially in America, are building an audience for comic books that will last a lifetime. Right now, if 860,000 people bought Dogman, that was not multiple copies. That was one copy each, probably shared between 2 or 3 of them. So you definitely got over 1 million people reading that book. How many of those in 10 years' time will still want to be reading comics? If it's 10%, you've still just added another 100,000 readers into the marketplace. So if I was that kind of publisher, I'd be looking for also having kids and YA books, sure, but start on your adult books, because those kids are growing up. By the time they're 20, 21, they won't want to be reading Dogman, but they might want to read Dav Pilker's The Dogman Returns, The Dogman Strikes Back. Who knows? There's going to be stuff that will be available. And if you can tap into those people now and start working on, almost get ahead of them, work out all these people who are buying this stuff now, where will they be in 10 years' time? Start working for that now. There's all sorts of possibilities out there. I think that the comic medium and the comic industry is going to be rich, and there's so much future, so much potential in print as well as digital. It's going to have to take people to realize it, and we might have to wait a few more years for people to age.
But I think you're really onto something with this, Rich. I've seen echoes of this train of thought of yours before, and I think you're really tapping into something that's absolutely there. I can see it myself.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. It's an interesting time, whether that's the Chinese definition or not. But it's definitely, with all the ructions in the industry, and some of these, I mean, you can see are just like short-term studio owner decisions for the bottom line in the immediacy. But they're keeping hold of everything. No one's getting rid of anything. Marvel aren't selling. Disney aren't selling Marvel. Warner Brothers aren't selling DC. It's just this is the way things are. It's people are making changes, but they're still looking for the future, I guess. Some of them have definitely got their eyes on 20 years hence.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see where this all goes, and who else will step up.
Yeah, right on.
It's interesting because looking at like Netflix buying Millarworld, and they haven't seen the great success from that so far. Jupiter's Legacy was cancelled and the like, but the thing is, they own it all.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the idea that people who are reading this who are 20 now, in 20 years' time they'll be 40, and maybe that's when you make your adaptation of whatever Millarworld you want to pick. You just do it 20 years later because you still own it.
Right.
And if you buy it, you buy it in perpetuity.
That's
you just put it in the bank, and you wait until the industry grows up to appreciate what you really like. So, and that's what you've seen that with all sorts of stuff. Whether the success of the Transformers films, or even the X-Men films, were based on the people who liked it 20 years ago.
Who liked the cartoon? Yeah, for sure.
The cartoon, 100%. Absolutely.
It's all about the cartoon.
The X-Men film was all about the cartoon, and those people growing up. So I'm interested to see what will happen based on the stuff that's coming out now, when all the people reading it now are then studio heads in 20 years' time.
It's absolutely generational delivery, and that's why a generation
that's a good phrase. Is that your phrase?
That is my phrase. Yeah.
Right.
I just made it up here and now. But generational delivery. It's the key, because that's why 10, 15, 20 years ago, you get all those classic TV shows turned into movies. Some of them work and some of them don't, but the ones that work, like the Addams Family, they make big money. I'm not saying necessarily artistically, but from a financial point of view, that's the model, isn't it? You look at what kids are obsessing about now, and you double down on it 15, 20 years later. And it works time and time again.
If I was a branded industry with a strong brand, I would advertise on kids' television because it's cheap. And in 20 years' time, they're your customers. I bought, a while ago now, but I bought double glazing from Everest. Why? Because I remember the Everest ads.
Ted Moult.
When I was a kid. Yeah, so buy the best, Everest. So but that sticks. Those kind of stuff stick in your head. They're saying generational delivery. I like that. I'm going to use that if you don't use it.
It's okay. No, you can definitely use it on my behalf. If you want to credit me, I don't mind. I'll be happy.
I won't. No, I won't. Well, of course not.
So, mate, I love where this conversation has gone. There's a couple of other things I wanted to touch upon. One is from your own bibliography. So the thing is, you've actually created a fair amount of books over the years.
A few, every now and then. Always got a few in going around the place. Absolutely,
You absolutely have. Which is your favourite project that you created?
Possibly the Flying Friar. I like that a lot.
It's really interesting to say that. That is my favourite piece of work of yours.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, and I like the Flying Friar.
Yes, that was the retelling the Superman story in 16th century Italy with a real life monk or friar who could actually apparently fly, based on true story, and his best friend, the grand nephew of Martin Luther, Lux Luther, and it was it was religion versus science at a time when it was the opposite way around. So where religion was in the ascendancy and science wasn't. So it was doing the Superman story, but just at a very, very different time. And I like doing that. That was a lot of fun. I also have a very soft spot for Hold Up, which was my American isolationist gun running. It was basically the Addams Family, but with guns kind of thing instead of horror.
Yeah, well, that was about 15, 16 years ago. You did that, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of fond memories for that, and that was quite ridiculous, over the top series that thankfully Avatar chose to publish. That was before Reading Cool, so that was my first in with Avatar. So those were quite good.
I thought your Doctor Who book was pretty good, to be honest. Your
IDW book. Now, that's the idea that I'd had since I was about 14.
Yeah.
And I think we've all got a Doctor Who idea. Maybe I've got a couple of others, but that was... I remember when I was asked by IDW to pitch for it, I thought, oh, okay. And so we want 3 ideas, so we could send to the BBC and they could tell them which one. So I basically decided, this is the story I wanted to do, this backwards murder mystery. But I was asked to be given 3, so I basically went online and I found out the stories that were being rejected at the BBC for various reasons, and I basically pitched 2 other ideas that I knew would be rejected for other reasons, so they'd have to go with this third one, and they did, and it was great. So yeah, it was. And I have a lot of fun. Yeah, stuff I've written, especially after 3 years.
Room with a deja vu.
Room with a deja vu. Yes, that was the one. It was. Yes, someone gets murdered, but the murderer is living in the opposite direction along the timeline. An entire species that exists. Well, now that people have seen Tenet, It might have done a bit better. They get the idea of living backwards on the timeline.
Well, I would argue that your Doctor Who comic is actually better delivered than Tennant is, which
it's more comprehensible.
I think is a particularly beautifully made but weak, structurally weak piece of.
Well, the trick with my comic book, which you couldn't do with Tennant, is because I use the strength of the comic book, which in the comic book you can go back. Wow. You can read backwards if you want. So I was able to set whole scenes, which then if you read backwards, made more sense. It's hard to do that when you're sitting in the cinema watching a film, to go back. The best trick for Tenet is to watch it again as a sequel to itself and a prequel to itself. But
I think that's a good idea.
I hear what you're saying. But yeah, that case, I took advantage of the medium, which was you can read it backwards. And that worked. I did things like color coding. So I used from the Doctor Who TV series where when the TARDIS is going through the time tunnel, if it's red, it's going backwards. If it's blue, it's going forwards. So I'd use those as the borders. So at any time you could see whether this was better to be read backwards or forwards. And if it's both at the same time, which there were some, you'd have like a split colour on either side. So the colour would reflect which part was going backwards and which part was going forwards. And I put a little note at the very beginning, just saying some parts of this comic book read better backwards and forwards, and to let people go. And I did get some. And also the nice thing about doing that is that I'm now part of Doctor Who kind of canon and lore. I'm always a footnote. I'm always an asterisk now.
Exactly.
That's quite a nice place to be. So that was quite fun. But that's the only thing that I've written for the open market because.
Of course. Yeah, I associate you with some licenses, but it's because you've done quite a few parodies.
I've done some parodies. Yeah. Yes. Parodies are my other way of doing it. Things like the Avengefuls or the X-Flies and
Watchmensch, all that stuff. Yeah.
Watchmensch was so much fun. I got the nicest.
I had the sense that you really enjoyed that book, doing that book.
Yeah, I mean that took a lot. That's probably the one that took the longest to write.
Yeah.
And then I found someone in Simon Rohrmuller who could do a really good little take on Dave Gibbons. It's really good enough, and it worked. And Dave loved it. He sent me a note saying something along the lines of, "I laughed out loud several times, and it's got a much better ending than the film," which was great. I was going to take that. Yeah. So. And recently, Heavy Metal reprinted it in their Softwood book in all colour.
Yeah.
And it was coloured by the colourist of Watchmen.
So Higgins coloured it, yeah?
Higgins coloured.
Amazing.
Higgins coloured the Watchmen. And he was paid more for that than we were, certainly. But, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of these things.
That's beautiful, mate. I really love that. That's great.
So that was good. Yeah, yes, just think about it. He doesn't get Watchmen royalties.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, of course, it makes complete sense. I mean, that's a bit of a kick.
You think of Watchmen, and he's so much a part of it.
He really is. He really is
so strong. But yeah, he doesn't get royalties.
Yeah, you may recall that, funnily enough, with Scott from IDW, before he was at IDW, one of the things I co-published with Scott on the range of books that I worked on back in the day was Thunderbolt Jackson, which was drawn by Dave and and the art was by John. And that was one of, I think, of a number of attempts to dial up John's presence in terms of if it had hit, he could have been earning some coin out of it. It didn't hit big.
He also like wrote and drew chunks of the before Watchmen stuff as well. So
yeah, he did indeed. Yeah,
but as he was pointing out, this is now finally going to get some money for Watchmen.
Yeah, and he's a very nice bloke. So I think
lovely guy.
I think for him to colour that must have been a real treat.
Oh my word! I first of all, when it was suggested, I thought, well, that'll never happen, clearly. And then when I contacted and suggested it, I sent him a few pages. He said, yeah, absolutely. The difficult thing for him was because that's not how he colours things anymore. He had to break out the old colouring kit because he does everything digitally. And that wouldn't work for this. So he had to go back. And then he had to pull out all his pages and his notes to try and get... And then he told me, he dialed it up. So he basically parodied himself just to dial up those contrasts and things, the pages. It was a beautiful thing to see. If you can find it, it's in the Softwood edition of Heavy Metal magazine. I'm sure it's available, and it's the whole thing is quite fun. But that is a particular, definitely favourite of mine to see it all in colour.
Mate, I will check that out for sure. There's no two ways. Okay, that's a fine recommendation. I want to end at the beginning, mate. So, do you remember where you and I first met?
No, was it UCAC? It feels like it should be a UCAC.
You're pretty close, but it was actually at San Diego.
Okay,
it was actually in San Diego. We actually met in America.
Yeah, okay.
And we were introduced by my old friend John Nee, and we were actually at one of the dead dog parties.
Oh right! Oh my God! Yes, I know exactly where you were, and now I remember exactly. Yes, absolutely.
And we were standing outside the bar. It's a very warm night, having a drink. And John
we were English people who found each other.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And what really impressed me about that, at the time, was the fact that I've John known very well for a long time. It's tremendously nice to my dad whenever my dad has met him. So, as is Sandy Resnick, who's another very nice guy. And what I really loved is because you're at the peak of your lying in the gutters infamy at that moment. I thought, well, this is very interesting because this cat here, who is publishing a lot of stories about this cat here and the people who work around him, actually get on extremely well and are friends. And to me, that's the benchmark of a genuine person. So when John introduced you and was extremely positive, I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. Because by that point I was probably a couple of years into reading your stuff. Yeah. But yeah, that was it. I was very impressed by the relationship that you and John have.
I love John a lot. He's a great guy. Yeah. I hope he's finding success with whatever he's doing post-Marvel kind of stuff.
Well, the thing about John is he will always ultimately find success because he's that kind of self-actualizing guy.
He's also, the tenet of such a genuine and odd and wonderful man is that when he was tasked with reducing Marvel's employee count after the pandemic, after the shutdowns, he decided that he was going to be his own job was one that he was going to lose. He actually canned himself rather than can another employee or two at Marvel. He decided, right, well, I should get rid of myself then. Well, yeah. That's I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
I don't think you could.
You and I both know that's a very rare move. It's a very rare move.
It almost feels. I can't think of another example, but it just struck me as what an amazing person you are. That's beyond anything I could be. I can't be that good a person, John.
Yeah,
I think so. That was one of those moments I thought, yeah, there we go.
And he is that good a person. He's a genuinely good guy, and I'm sure that whatever he does next will be genuinely interesting.
Oh yeah,
whether it's within comics or outside of comics.
Absolutely, definitely.
Hey,
Can't wait to find out. I'll see if I find out. I'll tell you.
And vice versa, mate, for sure, 100%. And thanks for sharing this hour with me, mate. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. Anytime.
And thanks for your candor, which I really appreciate.
I don't know anything else.
I know that, brother. I know. It's good to see you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will look forward to reading that labyrinthine story that you told me about going live later on today. I can't wait to see that.
And everybody else is watching this, they can go back a few weeks and see whenever this goes on.
Well, that's what I love about it, because it's given whoever listens to this podcast the inside track on how your process works, which I think is fascinating.
Absolutely.
And continued success to you, mate. You take care of yourself.
You too.
See you soon, brother. Cheers.
In person.
In person over drinks. We'll make it happen.
Because Freedom Day, everyone's...
of course. Absolutely.
I'm not going anywhere.
That'll be the point at which we can chart the beginning of the end of mankind and organised civilization.
It was
Freedom Day is where it starts.
It was then that the zombies began to rise. Yes, we shall see.
Yeah. Sooner rather than later, brother. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Hard Agree. This episode was edited by John Horsley and Kenrick Regan, and our theme music, Golden, was written and performed for this show by Liverpool's finest band, DENIO. Hard Agree is a production of the Spoilerverse and myself, Andrew Sumner.